Emma Lewis had always believed that her marriage was simple, predictable, and comfortably ordinary. She and her husband Daniel lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood, surrounded by friendly neighbors, neatly trimmed lawns, and the daily rhythm of routine. On that particular Thursday evening, Emma was in the kitchen preparing dinner, nothing fancy. Just a simple pasta with garlic bread, when she heard the front door open and close much more quickly than usual. Daniel stepped inside with an expression she couldn't quite read. Not stress, not anger, something closer to urgency. Before Emma could even ask how his day went, he announced, "My boss wants to come over tonight." Emma blinked, confused. Daniel's boss? Mr. Leonard Carver, the man Daniel described as strict, perfectionistic, and notoriously difficult to impress? The same man who had never not once made any effort to visit an employee's home? Tonight? Emma repeated, tightening her grip on the wooden spoon. Yes, Daniel said, loosening his tie. In about an hour. Emma's mind raced. She wasn't dressed for company. The living room had throw blankets everywhere, and the kitchen smelled like garlic instead of something elegant. But even more confusing was why Mr. Carver would suddenly request a personal visit. It wasn't normal. And Daniel's tone told her this wasn't casual. Still, Emma pushed aside her unease and went into hostess mode. She quickly cleaned the living room, lit a soft candle to freshen the air, and tried her best to calm the flutter in her stomach. "Do I need to prepare something special?" she asked. Daniel hesitated a second too long. No, he just wants to talk. That hesitation didn't sit well with her, but Emma decided not to press it. She trusted Daniel, even if his behavior felt slightly off. Maybe it was about a promotion. Maybe Daniel had been working hard and Mr. Carver wanted to recognize him. Emma tried to convince herself that was the case. As she arranged the cushions neatly, she caught Daniel staring into nothing, deep in his thoughts. "Hey," she said softly, touching his arm. "It's going to be fine." He forced a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. The doorbell rang precisely at 7 p.m., sharp and commanding. Emma straightened her sweater one last time and opened the door to find Mr. Carver standing on their porch impeccably dressed, expression unreadable, holding a small, formal-looking folder. "Good evening, Mrs. Lewis," he said, with a tone that felt more like a business greeting than a friendly visit. "Thank you for receiving me on such short notice." "Of course," Emma said politely, though a knot tightened in her stomach as Mr. Carver stepped inside. Emma had no idea that this seemingly simple visit, this polite, unexpected evening would soon lead to a revelation that would shatter her calm world and force her to question not just Daniel's job, but their entire future. And the night had only just begun. From the moment Mr. Carver stepped into the house, the atmosphere shifted into something that Emma couldn't quite define, strangely formal, heavy, almost evaluative. He removed his coat with precise, almost mechanical movements and allowed Daniel to take it, offering a polite nod. Emma guided him to the living room where she had prepared a small tray of snacks, crackers, cheese, and her homemade garlic bread, which now suddenly felt too humble. Still, Mr. Carver accepted a piece with a polite "thank you," though his expression didn't change. Daniel sat on the edge of the couch as if one wrong move would break something fragile. Every time Mr. Carver spoke, Daniel straightened his spine and nodded too quickly. Emma watched the exchange quietly, her instincts sharpening. She had seen her husband nervous before big presentations, important deadlines, stressful family gatherings, but this was different. This was tension mixed with fear. "So, Mrs. Lewis," Carver began, folding his hands neatly on his lap, "Daniel speaks highly of you." Emma smiled warmly. "That's kind of him. And you're a teacher, correct?" "Yes, 3rd grade." He nodded slowly, thoughtfully, as though this information mattered more than it should. That must be fulfilling. Stability, predictability, routine, good qualities. Emma couldn't tell if he was complimenting her or analyzing her. She felt Daniel's gaze flick toward her as though checking how she reacted. Carver continued with a series of oddly personal questions, not rude, but strangely targeted. How long have you lived in this house? Do you see yourselves staying here long term? Are you close with your family? How willing are you to adapt to new environments? Emma tried to answer politely, but each question made her pulse quicken. This wasn't a friendly visit. This wasn't a simple meet and greet. This felt like an evaluation, a private interview she hadn't signed up for. And through it all, Daniel didn't say a word, not even to lighten the mood. At one point, Carver leaned back in the chair and observed the living room with a slow, thoughtful gaze. Comfortable home, he said. Very grounded. Thank you, Emma replied, though it felt more like a test than a compliment. She noticed Daniel squeezing his hands together, knuckles white. Trying to break the tension, Emma asked, So, Mr. Carver, what made you want to visit tonight? I know Daniel works very hard, so Carver lifted one eyebrow subtly. Yes, Daniel is dedicated. Very dedicated. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. That dedication is the reason for my visit. Emma exchanged a quick glance with Daniel. He looked away. Carver took another deliberate bite of garlic bread before setting it down carefully. There are important matters we need to discuss, he said calmly, and it is essential that you are both present. The room suddenly felt smaller, the walls inching closer. Emma's heartbeat thudded against her ribs as she realized something significant, something life-changing was about to be revealed. And she still didn't understand why she felt like she was the one under the spotlight. The silence in the living room thickened until Emma could practically feel it pressing against her skin. Mr. Carver had leaned back slightly, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp and observant, as if he were studying every micro-expression on her face. Daniel sat beside her on the couch, stiff as a statue, his knees bouncing slightly, a nervous habit she hadn't seen in years. Emma clasped her hands together and tried to steady her breathing. She didn't know what was coming, but every instinct whispered the same warning. Something big is about to drop. Then Carver turned directly to her, not to Daniel. His voice softened, but the seriousness behind it didn't waver. Mrs. Lewis, he said, has Daniel told you why I really wanted to meet you tonight? Emma froze. Daniel closed his eyes briefly as if bracing for impact. No, Emma answered slowly, her eyes narrowing. He only said you wanted to talk. Carver nodded, as though confirming something he already suspected. I see. The way he said it made a chill crawl down her spine. What is this about? She asked, her voice firmer now, protective. If something's happened at work, it's not quite that simple, Carver interrupted gently. He leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees, hands clasped. The movement was small, but it shifted the entire energy of the room. This matter involves both of you, but it depends heavily on your understanding. And your agreement? Emma frowned. Agreement to what? Daniel swallowed hard. His knee bouncing grew faster until Emma put her hand on top of his, only to feel the tension vibrating through him. Carver continued, Before I can explain the purpose of my visit, I need to ensure that you are prepared to hear something significant. Something that will affect your home, your stability, your future. Emma's heart kicked up another notch. What are you trying to say? She whispered. Carver studied her face carefully, as though her reaction mattered more than the answer itself. I want to know, he asked quietly, how much Daniel has shared with you. Daniel inhaled sharply, almost in pain. Emma turned toward him, confusion turning into alarm. Shared what? She demanded. Daniel, what is going on? Her husband opened his mouth, closed it again, then rubbed a hand over his face. "Emma, I was going to tell you. I just didn't know how." That admission stabbed her with worry. It wasn't like Daniel to hide things, especially not something that made him this distressed. Carver lifted a hand, refocusing the conversation. "Mrs. Lewis, what I'm about to tell you is extremely confidential and time-sensitive. Daniel has been aware of the situation for some time." Emma's stomach dropped. Daniel wouldn't meet her eyes. "This isn't about a minor work decision," Carver said. "This concerns a major shift, one that requires not only Daniel's commitment, but yours." Emma felt her breath catch. Everything inside her whispered the same terrifying thought. Whatever this is, Daniel hasn't just been stressed. He's been keeping a life-changing secret. And now she was finally about to hear it. For a long moment, no one spoke. The quiet stretched out, heavy and suffocating, wrapping around Emma like a tightening rope. She looked at Daniel, then at Mr. Carver, waiting for someone to finally speak the truth that had been hovering just out of reach all evening. Carver exhaled slowly, as though preparing himself as well. Then he reached into the sleek folder he had brought and placed it on the coffee table between them. The folder landed with a soft thud, but to Emma, it sounded like a door slamming shut on the life she knew. "Mrs. Lewis," Carver began, "Daniel has been under review for a new position, one of the highest-ranking opportunities our company offers." Emma blinked. A promotion? That sounded like good news. But the dread in Daniel's posture told her it was anything but simple. Carver continued, "The position comes with significant benefits, influence, and long-term security. But it also comes with requirements." Emma frowned. "Requirements?" Daniel looked up at her, his eyes finally meeting hers, full of silent apology. Carver opened the folder. Inside were documents, maps, and what looked like contract outlines. "If Daniel accepts this promotion," he said, "you both would need to relocate." "Relocate?" Emma repeated, trying to process. "To where? Another city?" Carver shook his head. "Another country." Emma felt the air leave her lungs, and the timeline, he added gently, is 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 14 days. 14 days to uproot their home, her job, her family, everything she knew? Emma stared at Daniel, who visibly flinched under her gaze. "You knew?" she whispered. Daniel's voice cracked. "Emma, I didn't want to burden you until I had something certain. I thought maybe they wouldn't pick me. I didn't know how to tell you. You didn't tell me at all," she said softly, hurt slicing through her. Carver interjected, his tone professional but softer now. "Daniel has excelled. He is one of only 3 candidates. However," he paused, folding his hands, "your approval is mandatory." Emma blinked again. "Mine? Why?" "This is a family-dependent transfer," Carver explained. "The company will only finalize the promotion if the spouse is fully supportive. The role demands stability at home. Without that, Daniel cannot take the position." Emma stared at him, stunned. "So, you came here because of me?" "Yes," Carver said plainly. "I needed to understand whether this life change is something you could accept. Daniel's future in the company depends on it." Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. She had expected maybe a work issue, a performance discussion, or even a conflict, not this. Not a decision that would uproot their entire existence. Not a secret that Daniel had carried alone. And somewhere beneath the shock, a new feeling formed, fear, tangled with uncertainty. And the weight of a choice she wasn't ready for. Carver closed the folder gently. "The sound final double quotes Mrs. Lewis," he said. "Your answer will determine everything." And just like that, they're quiet. Predictable life was no longer predictable at all. The moment Mr. Carver excused himself to take a phone call on the porch, the living room fell into a deafening silence. Emma could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears, loud and unsteady. Daniel stood up, walked a few steps, then sank back onto the couch as if his legs couldn't hold him. He buried his face in his hands. Emma didn't speak immediately. She needed a moment to understand her own feelings before she opened her mouth. But the emotions were coming too fast: shock, confusion, fear, and beneath it all, a rising tide of betrayal. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled. "How long have you known Daniel?" He looked up, guilt etched into every line of his face. "A few months." "A few months?" Her voice cracked at the edges. "And you didn't tell me?" "Not once?" "I wanted to," he whispered. "Every single day. But I knew how much you love your job, how close you are to your parents, how settled you feel here. I didn't want to ruin that unless I was sure the promotion was real. So you decided to keep it from me completely?" Daniel opened his mouth, but no words came out at first. He reached for her hand, but Emma pulled hers away, her hurt too raw. "Emma," he said, inhaling shakily. "I was scared." "Of what?" she demanded. "Of losing the chance," he admitted. "Of you saying no before I even had a chance to explain. This opportunity, it could change everything. It's the kind of job people dream about." "And what about what I dream about?" Emma said softly, but the question landed like a blow. Daniel closed his eyes. "I know. And that's why I didn't want to push you." He looked at her desperately. "But Emma, this job, it's not just a promotion. It guarantees financial security for us for years. Health benefits, travel, a salary I never thought I'd earn." Emma swallowed hard. She knew money had been tight lately. Bills piling up. Medical expenses for his father. The strain showed in his shoulders every night when he came home. She felt sympathy, but that didn't erase the sting of being kept in the dark. She stood up and paced slowly around the room, her arms wrapped around herself. "You should have trusted me enough to talk to me. I know." His voice cracked. "And I'm sorry. I'm really, truly sorry." Emma stopped pacing and looked at him. Vulnerability filled her eyes. "Do you want to move?" Daniel hesitated. That hesitation was louder than any answer. "I want the opportunity," he admitted. "But I don't want to lose you in the process." Emma felt her chest tighten. The weight of the decision pressed down on her shoulders. She didn't want to be the reason he missed something life-changing. But she also didn't want to sacrifice everything she loved for something she didn't choose. "So that's why he came," Emma murmured. "Not to talk to you. To evaluate me." Daniel winced. "Yes." At that moment, the front door opened again. Mr. Carver stepped back inside, expression unreadable. "Mrs. Lewis," he said calmly, "I believe it's time we talk about your decision." Emma inhaled deeply. Her world had never felt so fragile. As Mr. Carver stepped back into the living room, the tension that had momentarily eased came crashing back like a wave. His calm, collected expression didn't help. If anything, it made Emma's heart beat even faster. She felt Daniel watching her, eyes full of worry, fear, and hope all tangled together. Carver, still composed, took his seat again and folded his hands neatly. "Mrs. Lewis," he said, "I know this is abrupt, but the company requires an answer sooner than later. We need to know if you're willing to relocate." Emma didn't sit. She stood in the center of the room, hands clasped tightly in front of her, trying to catch her breath. The weight of two futures, one familiar, one unknown, pressed down on her chest. Daniel rose slowly. "Emma, whatever you choose, I'll accept it. I promise." She turned toward him, eyes shining with emotion. "Will you, Daniel?" Because if I say no, you lose a career-changing opportunity. If I say yes, I lose everything I've built here, my job, my parents, my students, my home. Daniel took a step toward her. I don't want you to sacrifice your happiness for mine, but I also don't want to turn down something that could secure our future. I'm torn, but it's your decision. Emma felt her throat tighten. This was the hardest part, not the move, not the relocation, not the unknown. But the truth Carver had revealed without saying it outright. Her husband's dream depended on her. Carver cleared his throat softly. If I may add one thing, Mrs. Lewis, this position is rare. Only a handful of people in the company have ever been offered it. Daniel is exceptional, but we cannot move forward unless his home life is stable. That stability includes your willingness. Emma closed her eyes. Images rushed through her mind, her classroom, her parents' Sunday dinners, the garden she planted last spring, the little routines that made her life feel grounded and warm. But other images joined them. Daniel stressed late at night, Daniel doubting himself, Daniel hoping for something better. She remembered how he'd supported her dreams without hesitation. Silence settled again as her thoughts churned. Finally, Emma opened her eyes and looked directly at Carver, then at Daniel. Her voice was steady, even though she felt everything shaking inside. I don't want to hold you back, she said quietly. And I don't want us to spend the next 30 years wondering what might have happened if we'd taken the chance. Daniel inhaled sharply. Emma continued, I'm terrified. I'll miss home. I'll miss my family, but I believe in us more than I'm afraid of change. Tears formed in Daniel's eyes as he closed the distance between them. So, Emma whispered, taking his hand, my answer is yes. Carver nodded once, a hint of satisfaction flickering across his usually stoic face. Then congratulations to both of you. Your new future begins immediately. As Carver left, Daniel pulled Emma into his arms and held her tightly. Her world was shifting, but for the first time that night, she felt a spark of something new: courage, hope, maybe even excitement. Their life as they knew it had ended, and a brand new chapter had just begun.